Good day everyone. For this video presentation, we will review the history of the international monetary system. So bakit nga ba importante para sa atin na balikan ang history ng international monetary system? This is because in financial management, understanding the nature of the monetary system internationally can give us an extra milestone toward intelligent management of the company's financial aspects. In addition, we will compare and contrast the alternative exchange rate systems. We all know that exchange rate plays a pivotal role in the monetary system of each country. So we will discuss this exchange rate system as well. Before we proceed, let us first define international monetary system. IMS or International Monetary System defined as the institutional framework within which international payments are made, movements of capitals are accommodated, and exchange rates among currencies are determined. So in order for us to have a better monetary system, the agreements regarding the rules and policies needs to be arranged by different governments around the world. International monetary system is a complex whole of agreements, rules, institutions, mechanisms, and policies regarding exchange rates, international payments, and the flow of capital. The system has evolved over time and will continue to do so in the future as the fundamental business and political conditions underlying the world economy continue to shift. So bakit nga ba kasama ang political conditions sa international monetary system? This is because a government can intervene to regulate the policies. Siyempre, hindi pwedeng pabayaan ng government leaders ang kanilang mga bansa na magkaroon ng hindi magandang financial conditions, lalo na in terms of exchange rate system. In some part of the presentation, we will discuss these interventions. So in other definition of the international monetary system, it is refers to a system that forms rules and standards for facilitating international trade among the nations. It helps in reallocating the capital and investment from one nation to another. So we have International Monetary Fund and World Bank na tumutulong na mag-facilitate at mamahala ng mga regulations at ng monetary system sa buong mundo. With the growing complexity in the international trade and financial market, the international monetary system is necessary to assign a standard value of the international currencies. One might agree with me that having a system that needs to be implemented globally is a real big challenge dahil kinakailangan ng management na i-ensure ang global monetary cooperations at i-secure ang financial stability ng bawat bansa katulad ng ginagawa ng International Monetary Fund. Alam natin na marami ang mga corporations ang nag-a-attempt na mag-operate sa international market, so the need for the standard value when it comes to international currencies ay kinakailangan ding ma-allocate or ma-arrange ng maayos. Again, the rules and regulations set by the International Monetary System to regulate and control the exchange value of the currencies are agreed upon by the respective governments of different nations. Thus, the government's stand may affect the decision-making of the international monetary system. For example, kapag ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas ay nagkaroon ng pagbabago sa trade policy, it may affect the international trade of goods and services. So with that, nakikita natin kung ano ang malaking gampanin ng government sa ikagaganda at ikakaayos ng international monetary system. Now, let us discover ano-ano nga ba ang purpose ng international monetary system. Number one is to facilitate the exchange of goods, services, and capital among countries. We should know that international monetary system is not only focused on the regulations of the financial aspects of the countries across borders. It should also facilitate the exchange of goods and services. This is because in a complex and competitive setting of international and financial market, international cooperations can be able to sell, or they can even buy stocks, bond, and other financial products or different corporations with high potential of return on investment. So aside from that, if there is an exchange of goods and services between countries, there will be having an international payment as well na kinakailangang i-facilitate ng international monetary system. Number 2 is to contribute to stable and high global growth while currency fostering price and financial stability. The international monetary system should foster price and financial stability. Let's say in this time of pandemic, wherein more countries are experiencing difficulties in terms of socioeconomic status, so one of the roles ng international monetary system ay makatulong sa stable at high global growth despite na mayroon pa ring unexpected health crisis sa buong mundo. Number 3 is to regulate the balance of payments, which is an accounting device that records all international transactions between a country and the rest of the world for a given period. It is easy to understand that one of the purpose of international monetary system ay ma-regulate ang balance of payments ng isang bansa. When we say balance of payment or yung BOP, it refers to the statement of all transactions made between entities in one country and the rest of the world over a defined period of time, such as quarter or a year. By the way, we will be having a separate discussion about this topic. Next, in international monetary system, we need to consider the following elements. Number 1 is the exchange arrangement or rates. Another one is the international payments and transfers relating to current international transactions, international capital movements, and international reserves. Let us discuss these elements one by one. First is the exchange arrangement or exchange rates. It is the value of one currency for the purpose of conversion to another. We will commonly encounter exchange rate if we will have, let's say, $1, then we will exchange it to Philippine peso for a definite value for the specific period of time. The second one is the international payment and transfers relating to current international transactions. This is another element of IMS. It refers to the incoming and outgoing payment and transfer between two parties. So example, one country to another country. The next one is the international capital movements. It refers to the outflow and inflow of capital from one country to another country. They do not relate to a movement of goods or payment of exports and imports between countries. It refers to the borrowing and lending between countries. So example, the American bank lends to a Philippine government or a Japanese residents buy stocks in Thailand. The last one is the international reserves. International reserves are those external assets that are readily available to and controlled by countries' monetary authorities. According to the International Monetary Fund, international reserves comprise foreign currencies, other assets denominated in foreign currencies, gold reserves, special drawing rights, and international monetary funds reserves positions. Now, let us review the important history of the evolution for the international monetary system. So, we will focus the BIMETALLISM, classical gold standard, and interwar period. Let us review this evolution one by one. BIMETALLISM is a monetary system where the value of the money is based on two different metals. Usually, these two metals are gold and silver. BIMETALLISM became an alternative to the gold standard where the value of money was based on how much gold a country had in its reserves and how much that gold was worth. So during this period, ang monetary value ay ibinabase sa dami ng gold na mayroon ng isang bansa. Sa dalawang metals, gold is considered to be more valuable. In this type of system, the value of gold and silver is tied to each other. For example, the value of 1 ounce of gold might be worth 15 ounces of silver. The value ratio of the two metals would be 1:15. So during this period, ang ginagawa ng gobyerno ay ginagamit nila yung gold and silver para makaubuo sila ng coins as their money. If the government decided to print paper money, the paper money could be traded in for the equivalent value of silver or gold. So may mga tao na sa tingin nila ay favorable ang sistema because it allowed countries to keep more precious metal in their reserves. Countries could also put more currency to the circulation as the result. But in reality, bimetallism had more challenges than benefits. Kung marirecall natin yung sinabi ko kanina about the relative value ng dalawa, 1:15 ang ratio value. So in the United States, ang US, nagsiset sila ng value between the two. However, the price they had set for gold was actually less than market value. So ang tendency nito, kapag nagbenta ka ng gold directly sa US government, mabebenta lang ang gold mo sa mas mababang halaga. This is one of the unfavorable realities about the system. May mga iba't ibang issues din na nagsimula from different countries using bimetallism as the existing system. So each country set a different value for gold and silver. So it means yung using the system, malaya ang iba't ibang bansa na mag-set ng different value for their gold and silver. Dahil nga sa ganong klase ng sistema ng iba't ibang bansa, naapektuhan ang exchange rate from one country to another. So for example, ang gold ay may mas worth to United States than France, while silver in France could be worthy than silver in Germany. Always take note that for bimetallism system to work effectively, international cooperation is needed. The next thing happened in the history is that nagkaroon ng isang union na tinawag na a Latin Monetary Union, and it was through the initiative of France, Belgium, Italy, and Switzerland. The establishment of this union is to continually support the bimetallic system na nag-i-exist nung panahon na yon. It was established by a mint ratio between the two metals and provided for use of the same standard units and issuance of coins. Later on, the system was damaged by the monetary manipulations of Italy and Greece. With that, the future of bimetallic standards apparently have been closed at one international monetary conference na ginanap sa Paris noong 1867. When most of the delegates voted for the gold standard. So dito na nagsimula ang gold standard as the system of different government. Now let's review the different events happened during the period of gold standard. The gold standard is a monetary system where a country's currency or paper money has a value directly linked to gold. With this system, countries agreed to convert a paper money into fixed amount of gold. However, in today's system that we have, the gold standard is not currently used by any government. So during the period of classical gold standard, dahil nga nakalink ang countries supply sa gold, the necessity of being able to convert a fiat money into a gold on demand strictly limited the amount of fiat money in circulation. A little bit of review, a fiat money is the all kinds of money that are made legal tender by the government decree. So, nalimitahan ang circulation ng fiat money during the period. So, if you can think of the question, bakit hindi na lang mag-produce or mag-print ng pera ang gobyerno para hindi naghihirap ang bansa? This might be the effect of classical gold standard in our current system because different countries have only a limited amount of money na kinakailangang mag-circulate sa sistema ng bansa. This will also give us the truth that if more money is printed, bababa ang value ng currency ng isang bansa at magkukos ito ng inflation. So in this period, most countries had legal minimum ratios of gold to notes, currencies issued or other similar limits. So sa nakikita natin, unti-unti na nagkakaroon ng control sa sistema. Take note as well that in this era, international balance of payment differences were settled in gold. Even through there is an existing fiat money sa isang bansa, the medium of settlement between countries is through gold. Countries with a balance of payments surplus would receive a gold inflows, while countries in deficit would experience an outflow of gold. The next is the interwar period. So different important events happened in the evolution of international monetary system during the interwar period. After World War I, the world powers tried to return to the gold standard at pre-war parities, but the attempt to restore gold convertibility did not succeed, except momentarily. The 1920s to 30s were characterized by recession, banking crisis, the Great Depression, and the rise of fascism. Exchange rates were mostly floating and protectionism increased. So during this period, naranasan ng iba't ibang bansa ang mataas na inflation rates because government suspended the gold standard. Because of these system difficulties, some countries attempted to restore the previous exchange rates or yung gold standard system. However, they remained unsuccessful. The European countries and Japan are those countries behind this attempt. And furthermore, these countries decided on a partial gold standard where reserves consisted of partly gold and partly other countries' currencies. This standard is known as the gold exchange standard, but for most part, hindi pa rin sila naging successful. So isa sa mga reason kung bakit hindi nila ito tuluyang naging successful is that their efforts were mostly unilateral. It means that countries decided about the standard without consulting each other. Ang sabi nga natin kanina, that international monetary system requires the participation and collaborative efforts of different governments of different countries of the world. So despite that, the fact that bimetallic system requires a good amount of cooperation, the international monetary system of the interwar period cannot be described as a system. Dito kasi nagsimula ang mga disagreements and disputes, and dito din nangyari ang iba't ibang financial problems like recession, banking crisis, and others. Let us move forward to the discussion of flexible exchange rate regime. Exchange rate can be understood as the price of one currency in terms of another currency. However, just like for goods and services, we must take into account what determines the price since governments can influence it and even fix it. Within this pure definition of flexible exchange rate, we can find two types of flexible exchange rates. So we have pure floating regimes and managed floating regimes. On the one hand, pure floating regimes exist when there are absolutely no official purchases or sales of currency, while managed floating systems are those flexible exchange rates where at least some official intervention happens. This kind of system is currently happening as our international monetary system, and this system moreover have been rectified during the Jamaican Agreement. So let us review all about this agreement. Jamaican Agreement consists of the following. Flexible exchange rates were declared acceptable to the International Monetary Fund members, and central banks were allowed to intervene in the exchange market to iron out unwarranted volatilities. Number 2 is gold was officially abandoned, or the gold was demonetized as an international reserves assets. Half of the International Monetary Fund's gold holdings were returned to the members, and the other half were sold, with the proceeds to be used to help poor nations. Number 3 is non-oil exporting countries and less developed countries were given greater access to international monetary funds. These three agreements will be beneficial to different countries, most specifically those developing countries, for them to have an access to international monetary fund. Nowadays, we have organized and competitive international monetary system that allows different countries to regulate and control their financial monetary system for their economic development. We have mentioned a while ago the different types of exchange rate system. So we have managed float system of exchange rate and the free floating exchange rate system. Let's have a snapshot of this exchange rate system. First, let's discuss the managed float system. Managed float system will be defined where exchange rates fluctuate and the central banks attempt to influence the exchange rates by buying and selling currencies. A managed or dirty float is a flexible exchange rate system in which the government or the country's central bank may occasionally intervene in order to direct the country's currency value into a certain direction. So in the case of our country, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas may intervene or influence the exchange rates to control or to direct our currency. They are doing their best to make our exchange rates appealing and competitive so that we cannot experience high inflation rates that will affect the economic standing of our nation. This is generally done in order to act as a buffer against economic shocks and hence open its effect in the economy. Take note that a managed float is halfway between a fixed exchange rate and a flexible one, as a country can obtain the benefits of free-floating system but still has the option to intervene and minimize the risk associated with a free-floating currency. So for example, if a currency's value increases or decreases too rapidly, the central bank may decide to intervene in order to minimize any harmful effects that might result from the otherwise radical fluctuation. Another one is the free floating exchange rate system. So sometimes it referred to as a clean or pure float. It is a flexible exchange rate system solely determined by market forces of demand and supply of foreign and domestic currency, and where government intervention is totally inexistent. It allows countries to retain their monetary interdependence, which basically means they can focus on the internal aspects of their economy and control inflation and unemployment without worrying about external aspects. However, we must take into consideration external shocks such as oil price hike or capital flights, which can impossible to maintain a purely clean floating exchange rate system. So unlike the previous one, this exchange rate system, walang government intervention dahil nakadepende ang exchange rate sa demand and supply ng domestics and international currency. But in reality, halos lahat ng bansa ay hindi napapractice ang ganitong klase ng exchange rate system dahil alam naman natin that government is always have the degree of support sa central banks ng iba't ibang bansa. Actually, sa case natin sa Pilipinas, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is under the umbrella of the Philippine government. So, totally walang talagang nag-i-exist na ganitong sistema sa ating bansa. So, for your assignment, make a comparison matrix that differs international monetary system and international financial system. This is the end of our presentation. God bless everyone.